Hi guys, in this wee video I'm going to work through an exam question on the screen, rewriting a passage of music from OpenScore into ShortScore. If you think you need a bit more information about what OpenScore and ShortScore are, I've left a couple of links in the description. I've also got another video that does the opposite of this, that starts in ShortScore and converts it into OpenScore. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so in this example, we're being asked to rewrite the first two bars up to the pause and including the upbeat in ShortScore. So first two bars, so here is the first full bar, here is the second bar. It says up to the pause. Remember the pause is this thing here, this symbol. And including the upbeat, so that's this part here before the bar really begins. Okay, make sure you add the clefs, time signature, key signature and time signature. You do not need to add the lyrics, so that's good. So we don't need to write these in underneath. So we'll start with the clefs then. When we have ShortScore, which is also sometimes called closed score, we only have two staves for the four voices and one clef on each stave. So for the sopranos and altos who are going to share this stave, they have a treble clef. Just a normal one, nothing weird about it. The male voices, the tenor and the bass, use the bass clef on this second stave in here. Remember, for bass clef, make sure you get those dots in the right place. You can check it here if you're not sure. Okay, key signature. Let's look at this key signature and see what it's telling us. And we're going to write ourselves a wee note up here. So this first one I can see there, I'm looking at the little window inside the sharp. I can see that the top line of the stave is showing in that window, and I know that a note on that top line in treble clef is an F, so that means it's an F sharp. Let's look at this next one. This sharp here is showing me a space. This space here, same as that note, that means it's a C sharp. And then this last sharp here is showing me this top space, the like above the top of the stave in treble clef, and that is a G sharp. Okay, so when we come down to here, to make the key signature, in the treble clef, we need to write again F sharp, C sharp, G sharp. That's easy enough, we're just copying here, okay? But we're making sure that the windows of the sharps are showing the right line or space. It'll be easier for you than it is for me. And then for this one, for the bass clef, remember we can't copy the same lines and spaces that are up here because they have different letter names. We have to copy these ones, and we can also just double check it by knowing it's the same letters. So for the F sharp, that's that second top line here where the dots are. For the C sharp, I'm coming down to this space. And for the G sharp, I'm in this space here. Time signature, curly letter C. You could write 4/4, I guess, but let's just copy exactly what's here. Okay, next we want to do our bar lines so that we know that we're not going to run out of space, especially for me just now because I'm writing on this computer. So I need a kind of quite a big space for this one. The biggest space is probably going to be for this full bar and then quite a small space at the beginning. Okay, so if I only need space for one note here, and I'm joining my bar lines together. Remember, there's a small amount of debate about this, but you do need the bar lines to be lined up with each other. Even if you don't have the line fully going down like this, then you need to have them in line. So doing them like that is not okay. Doing them like this is okay. I'm going to do them fully joined like this. Oh dear. Hopefully yours are less wonky than mine. Okay, let's go back and let's look at, tick the time signature. Let's go back and look at the first part. Let's look at the soprano part first. There's no reason you have to start at the top, but that's how I like to do it. I'm going to copy the note heads over into the same lines and spaces. And again, I'm going to pay attention to how they're spaced out, okay? Because remember, we need to keep everything nicely in line as we go. So pay attention to how they're lined up together. Now, when I come back to do my stems and my beams, my lines, remember when you have two parts sharing the same stave, then we use the stems to show who sings which notes. So all of these notes, even though they're quite high up in the stave, they all need to have a stem that goes up the way to show that they're the soprano notes. And remember our little word to help us remember, we either want stems like a P if they're going down, or a D if they're going up. We do not want quab, right? So if you end up with a note that looks like a Q or a B, then something's going wrong. Okay, so P's, or in this case, up on this side like a letter D. I didn't leave myself quite enough space here. Never mind. Okay, now I'm going back and I'm going to do the note heads for my alto notes. And remember, they're also going to this stave. And I'm paying attention to where they're lined up. So for instance, this note here lines up with this first note for the soprano, but then there's a soprano note that doesn't have an alto one underneath. The next alto note is lined up underneath this one. Do you see what I mean? And then here we're going to have two notes for the altos before the next soprano note. Okay, now for the stems, remember that all these stems are going to look like a P, they're going to hang down. For this note here, the sopranos sing this note and so do the altos, so that means it basically has one note head and we give it two stems. And we don't need another pause sign here. Okay, that pause sign is fine for both of them. Okay, now we come to the tenors. And remember, the tenor voice is the trickiest one to do in this type of example because the notes are in one clef up here and they're in a different clef down here. So they will look quite different. So the treble clef with the A underneath means that although these notes look really high, they look higher than the soprano notes at the moment, they sound an octave 8 notes lower. Okay, so my normal tactic for this is to look along and see if I can find a middle C to use as my little landmark note. Unfortunately, we don't have any middle C's here. So now I'm going to have to kind of do the next best thing, which is I need to think about where a middle C would be. Okay, so a middle C would sit here in this clef. So remember, the middle C sounds like you would expect it to look like that, but it looks higher in this clef, okay? So I'm starting 1, 2 notes higher than middle C, okay? In bass clef, a middle C is the note that looks like this on one ledger line. So I'm starting 2 notes higher than that. So not the space above, but like a 2 ledger line note. Okay, let me show you. And remember, line it up. It needs to be in line with these two here. Okay, and then lucky for us, the rest are the same for a while. Okay, line them up nice so they remember. Now, for this one, where that was quite a big jump down, I would do 2 things. One is I would kind of count notes down the way, and you can count them down here. But I would also just check the letter name of that. So if I know that that letter name is an A, okay, I can count down however many notes I think it is, but I also want to make sure that I land on an A. If I know my letter names for bass clef, or I know a few of them at least, then I can double check that that's definitely still an A. Okay. Right, back to the beginning. Now we need some stems. So remember, this is the top voice. that's using this stave, so it needs all the letter D stems pointing up. Like this. Then I'm going to go back and do my bass note heads, and this is a nice and easy one again because it's the same clef each time, so I can copy the lines and spaces. Remember, I need to pay attention to the alignment though. And we get this weird like mirror image pause sign in close score, I mean. Okay, back to the beginning, and all these notes are going to have the letter P. And remember, this is another case where both the tenor voice and the bass voice are singing the same note. That's not obvious from here because it's two different clefs, but I know that one's a letter A. This is also a letter A, okay? So that means this one note head needs two. And there we go, all finished.